Welcome to More Than a Broker, the podcast that goes beyond the traditional definition of a logistics provider. My name is Andrew Elsener, co-founder of Spot. In each episode, we will dive into the stories of industry experts, keep you up to date on the highs and lows of the logistics marketplace, and introduce you to the people behind the advanced technologies that are driving innovation for brokers, shippers, and carriers within our industry. Join us as we explore the world of logistics through a different lens. This is More Than a Broker.
Drivers, start your engine!
Welcome back to the show, More Than a Broker. I'm Benjamin Garvin, Director of Red Technologies. Today, we're going to cover AI, artificial intelligence. Over the last 7 to 8 months, I've had conversations with customers, business associates, consulting groups, and the main question that keeps coming up, what are you doing? How are you doing it? So I thought it'd be a great place to start in the podcast and cover how to get started with AI and how this could apply to any business. So today, I would like to introduce Tyler Hampton and Alex Johnson. Fan favorite, Tyler Hampton. If you don't mind, just throw out a quick intro for us, and then we'll jump over to Alex.
Yeah, Ben, thanks for having me. Happy to be here. My name's Tyler Hampton. I've been with Spot since 2018, and I'm the Director of Data Science and Engineering. So I have responsibility for our data platform, how that helps with our data science initiatives, data engineering initiatives, and work that we do on the business intelligence side.
Not new to Spot. He's been here for a while, but new to the podcast. Alex Johnson, if you don't mind, could you give us a quick intro?
Thank you, sir. Hey, everybody. Name is Alex Johnson. Been with Spot and Red for going on 5 years. I serve as the Director of Development Operations here. I come from a background of manufacturing and healthcare. Overall, just passionate about code and technology. So serving in whatever capacity the business needs these days.
Thanks, guys. Before we jump in, I think it's really important. What I love about this podcast and the conversation that's going to happen today from the listeners, when you think through this, think through who you're listening to. So the best part, Tyler's coming from that data side. So the fuel for AI. And then when you listen to Alex and his response, he's coming from the development side. So two different worlds coming together to cover this topic. So I'm excited about this. Really simple. Let's start with the basics. We'll start with you, Tyler. Give me a quick overview of AI and why it matters.
I think from a definition standpoint, to make it pretty simple, AI for me is just building systems and machines that can understand information, reason on it or about it or through it, and act intelligently without explicitly being programmed to do it. Why is that important? I think as we move onto the data side, at least, it can really supplement what we're trying to do for the business. It can help us move quicker. It can help us put out better products for customers, carriers, and our internal users as well.
Alex?
This is something I've been excited to dive into just because it's moving quickly. It's a little abstract to everyone, including us, tenured individuals in this space. When we talk about artificial intelligence, right, you tend to think of a computer doing its own thinking. And with the boom of ChatGPT and these other, as I'm going to say, LLMs that we'll dive into later, you get the impression that the computer is kind of interacting with you, right? But it's a good opportunity here to talk about what these technologies are and what they're not. So in terms of artificial intelligence, we're not there yet. And it's, beyond my purview as to when and how that would happen. But the advent of these LLMs and other sort of AI adjacent technologies are programmed in a way to, let's say, be creative. With ChatGPT, something that's trained on billions and billions of interactions right across the internet and other mediums, you can input a prompt and receive a response that is sort of a blended average of what that typical interaction might look like, right? So when you combine that with, I'm going to use the buzzword here, APIs and actions and things, you can elicit a response that then invokes an action. And now you have this concept of an AI agent. So it's these topics that I think are going to be really good to talk about here and kind of put a definition on what's useful, what's emerging, and what's still kind of on the outskirts of this technology.
I agree with both of you. The real basic piece for me, and I love this term, we've always talked about for years in the business world, especially with technology, automation. To me, I look at it as intelligent automation, really. That piece resonated with me. The next piece, before I jump into some of the pieces around how we got started and what we're doing currently with AI and then the roadmap, I want to touch on kind of the skills gap and then also the fear of missing out. And then will it take my job? So I don't care who starts, but anyone, if you want to touch on one of those topics.
Yeah, and Tyler and I have spoken about this as far as our respective kind of what we see in the day-to-day. And at this point, I have no fear of AI or a ChatGPT taking my job, only because of what I alluded to earlier, right? If I ask it a programming-related question, it's going to give me what it knows about, right, in its corpus of things that it's seen. It's up to me as an expert in the field to try to interpret that and decide if it's applicable or if it's the right approach. Without, the education and the knowledge and the experience that all developers naturally cultivate, you're kind of building a system on popsicle sticks. I've seen it in many different avenues, right? Where I've seen leadership here toy around with AI, and it's been cool to see them explore that because they're brushing up their skills. But these systems, feature after feature that gets added, it becomes more fragile. And without the cohesive knowledge of how it's put together, it sort of crumbles. So I think no matter how good it gets, you're always going to have individuals who need that holistic knowledge in order to make it scalable, adaptable, maintainable, right? And that's what gives me confidence.
Real quick, let me stay with that for a second. So if I go back to the young Alex coming out of high school, would you continue through the same path of CS at Purdue?
I've spoken with younger individuals, in sort of that coaching mentorship capacity, and they have those concerns. And I try to translate to them that says, don't worry about what it's going to look like. Don't worry about what you'll be competing with, whether it's people or technology. If you obtain the skills, you're going to be marketable and you'll have a voice in those platforms because you're never going to replace the human element of, let's say, engineering a feature or interpreting a requirement, right? It might not look the same, but it's not going to go away.
I'll echo what Alex said. Will it take my job or our jobs? No, but I think it will change the way that the jobs look. Right. So from a data standpoint, an LLM could be very good at data analysis, but you need that person to make sure it makes sense for the business or the customer or the carrier that you're working with. So no, it won't take your job. It could help you supplement your job in a way that takes away the parts you don't want to do. And you can focus on the things that really matter and provide value.
Fair enough. So the one thing I believe that we're going to get into, and I know that people are going to give me a hard time about this, but if I look at the work from home and what you lose sitting on an island at your house, you're not sitting next to someone, you're not walking into a conference room and reading the room and understanding, how to present or gather requirements. When you grab someone on the tech side of things and they can solve something quickly with a large language model, do you lose that skill of like, hey, I know how to go troubleshoot something? And there's something to that when you are required to go back and figure out a problem and you're solving it by looking at different issues or errors that are coming through. If I'm a young kid now coming out of school and I drop an error code into ChatGPT, it tells me what's wrong and how to fix it. What does that look like in 5 to 10 years, right, from that skills gap? Or does it just shift it away?
From my experience, a convenience that in my generation has always existed for developers. I can look at Stack Overflow, I can Google search, I can find forums and articles. 99% of the time, somebody has had that error, and it's up to me to decide if it's what's happening for me or if it's something. It's really rare when a developer is going to come across a novel problem. And so using a tool like ChatGPT is just the next evolution of, I'm going to place this in here, and if it gives me my answer, great. It's when you go down this rabbit hole of trusting it off the cuff that you're burning more time because it told you it's this type of error, and now you're just sort of, you have blinders on, you're laser focused on addressing that, when it might just take either talking to somebody who's seen it or been in that arena before, or doing kind of a secondary search or something.
From a data standpoint, and maybe from a development standpoint as well, like Alex said, if you're trusting it off the cuff and you're using it to debug every single thing every time, you're not really learning what the actual problem is. The next time you do it, you're probably going to make the same mistake because you don't actually understand what the issue was and how to fix it. So I think it helps by surfacing the issue easily and quickly, but I think getting to the crux of why it happened and how not to make that mistake again, I think is something that will need to stay important.
So just another tool in the toolbox, basically.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's huge. And just to kind of present that with something that Ben had touched on, the benefit of having peers close by. I graduated Purdue in 2014, well before any of these tools were available, and sat at Honda with individuals and would just scoot my chair over and say, can you show me this? Can you talk me through this? Right. And now working with this next generation of developers myself, it's been a joy to say, I see you're having this problem. Let's talk through it, or let me show you a few things, right? Conversations that wouldn't happen if you're working in a silo or if everybody's just using an AI assisted tool. So it's this big gray, not black and white picture of everything that goes into a successful development endeavor.
Okay, so now jumping into the journey, right? So that Spot journey, really how we got started down this path of AI, machine learning, what we're currently doing, and then what's on the roadmap. So I'm going to start with you, Tyler, just thinking back through some of the issues that we had with SQL that change into a data warehouse. If you want to walk us through that journey and then walk us into what, like our first step into the AI world.
I'll walk quickly. So a couple years ago, we sat down and said, we need, as everybody needs, a single source of truth for all of our reports in our future endeavors with business intelligence, AI, et cetera. So we set out to create, what people call a data platform, right? So that puts all of the necessary data that we need in one spot. It allows our team to, develop machine learning products for internal, external. It allows for our teams here to do the business intelligence work that they do every single day. And then from a foundational standpoint, it's going to allow whatever we want to do with AI, whether that be agents, anything else, to have data store that they can go to and make decisions, and all of us to know exactly where it's coming from, how it got there, et cetera.
Alex, touch on the journey and where you started with some of the pieces. And I know that just an easy one, the OCR solution, if you want to talk through that. We took a process. So if you go back to the framework, right? People, process, technology, and now data that was already in place. And then you just pulled through the newer technology to enhance that platform. Kind of walk through what made that easier to bring it to production using some of the tools in the AI world.
Sure. And I mean, that was a compliment to not only the, capability and the willingness of our development team, our resources, but also leadership's energy to say, we're doing this now. We think we can do it better, or it can be a better experience. We have a pipeline through which customers email in documents in a PDF format, right? So invoices, proofs of delivery, things, right? So documents that enter into a workflow that eventually need to be sort of sorted, assigned, extracted, resolved, right? And with the emerging technologies and the accessibility to these AI tools, we came across a Google solution, right? Google's document AI platform. So we experimented. We do kind of our due diligence where we decide how we interact with it, concerns around security, performance, scalability, and sort of rebuilt this process using these models that Google offers, and also along with that, offer you the opportunity to train them for your needs. And it's another interesting avenue where this isn't the LLM style of AI, such as like a ChatGPT. This is closer to Tyler's world of machine learning, categorization. You distill a document down into its mathematical properties or just the patterns of its OCR, its character data, and decide that based on those patterns, this document's 99% likely to be an invoice. So last I checked, we were on the order of 15,000 documents coming in a day with a 90% or higher accuracy rate, and offloads that work that people were doing manually before.
And then going back to the previous platform, we were at roughly 48 to 50%, I believe?
Yeah, those were the figures that I'd heard, that the worst day, about 40%. So huge success, but more so, again, a success in our ability to adapt to these emerging technologies and to make use of them in a really helpful way.
Yeah, and I think the piece that, as you touched on there, but really it wasn't about the tool, it was really about the workflow and the outcome. Mm-hmm. So you had that really in place. So you followed that and just finding the right tool that could actually improve or enhance the process.
Yeah.
Real quick, going back to you, Tyler, you touched on the data platform. Just so everyone's clear, you don't need a data platform to go into AI. Would you cover that real quick?
I don't think you need a data platform for it specifically. I just think you need a grip on what data you think you'll need and is it in a good format that's easily accessible for the tools that Alex was talking about, right? So from my standpoint, what we decided on, if leadership says we want to do X, Y, and Z, we can move very quickly to make that happen because we have the data there in the format that's needed.
Yes. And so stay with that for a minute. And I believe, keep me honest, the fifth model around the pricing side, like what version?
So we had a few iterations from when we started. And the goal was, the logistics industry is moving very quickly toward a real-time pricing model, right? Shippers want to see a price quickly, and we need to be able to provide that. So we set up the data platform, obviously, and then we started building models to provide that rate to them. Originally it was, let's say, not the best, right? It was our first pass, but as of recently, we've done very well, been very successful. And, the workflow that we set up, as Alex talked about on the OCR side, allows us to develop, train, redeploy every day.
And then some of the, call them hurdles, common mistakes to avoid. I believe we've had success across the board, both on the data side and the development side with this, because we didn't say, okay, hey, we're going to go after everything. We're going to try to solve this, this, and this. We went after an actual area to focus on, and then we worked through that. And we're continuing to do it with some of the other solutions around customer service, on the voice agents, things like that. You guys want to touch on anything around just the common mistakes in some of those?
Yeah, I think from my standpoint, it's very easy, especially when something new and cool and shiny comes out, to try to apply it everywhere, right? Where we've found success on the data side is picking one problem, coming up with a solution, and iterating until we feel like we're at a spot where we can move on to the next problem, right? Obviously, we're not just doing one at a time, but having a very narrow, focused avenue toward these specific problems is much better from a data standpoint and a development standpoint than just saying, let's apply it everywhere and not knowing what your goal is.
And I know that there's always room for improvement, but I think that you've done a great job with this, and the same thing on the development side with Alex's team of really pulling the business in, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's probably one of my favorite parts of my job, right? Is I'm not just stuck behind a computer looking at data all day. I get to interact with the folks that utilize this tool, right? We are a support function for the business, right? We support the sales team, the carrier sales team, our operations team. So being able to have that relationship with them, have them give me feedback, I'll give them feedback, and make sure that we're giving them a product that suits their needs is a favorite part of the job for me.
Fair enough. Anything you would like to add?
Yeah, just thinking through how the conversation has played out, as Tyler described, the opportunities that arise and how you go about navigating them. And I would say there definitely is a lot of excitement. The buzz is out there about these AI tools and the FOMO, and everybody wants to make sure that they're using all the tools available to be competitive and get the best result possible. I enjoy the conversations and the rapport between the business and the technology, where we say, this brought to light, it sounds like you have an opportunity, you have an issue, right? And you're thinking AI could solve it. It might not be the best fit for it. It might be a report, or it might be an automated job, right? There's intelligence that we can bake into our processes that isn't always the AI, the artificial intelligence, right? So that's been good. And I would say has been a compliment to our organization is we're able to temper our excitement because we love technology, right? We live and breathe this stuff every day, but willing to temper that to make sure we're using the right solutions at the right time.
So what I'm hearing really is, stay focused, make sure you have clear goals, include the business side, and work together.
Oh, absolutely.
It's really this tool, what you've put together from machine learning to AI, you're really enhancing the process to give time back to the account managers, freeing them up to go spend more time to help solve bigger issues, drive home the spot experience with our customers. So you're giving them more time because of what the work that you guys are doing and solving with the pricing model.
Yeah, I think for me, when we think about the spot experience as a whole and where we can support our sales reps is historically, a lot of pricing would go through email, through the phone. In the recent years, a lot of shippers have looked for real-time pricing, right? No emails, no phone calls. So what we've done is create a solution where they're still able to get that. We will still provide a price that we can stand behind, but they can still have the rep that can take care of that relationship, provide the spot experience. So we've supplemented it and made it better for that relationship.
So Alex, on the same note there from Tyler, when you look at the OCR enhancement that you pulled together for the team, yes, massive impact for the end user, freeing up time, but also touch on the overall solution and the accuracy and what that brings back just to getting our customers, carriers paid quicker.
Absolutely, yeah. When you think of the big picture, this kind of ecosystem of businesses and individuals working with one another, it gives me a great feeling to feel like we're going to be at the top of the list in terms of we get people paid quickly, efficiently. There's not phone calls going back and forth, not questions around those things, because that time is better spent, back to Tyler's point, cultivating the relationship, the spot experience, addressing the problems that really matter. And if we're not already living it now, I hope as this thing evolves, it'll become the new normal. Our individuals in-house know that these documents are finding their way to the right order, the right shipment, and that these things are being processed, where any exceptions are a rarity, not the norm. So the joy from the internal platform, individuals knowing that they don't have to pour through 1,000 documents to find a proof of delivery, and the external joy of saying Spot always has its stuff together. They get me paid promptly because I email my things in and there's no more questions. There's always going to be things, and in the tech world, you're always fighting a new bug or a new version or something, but living that reality, that new normal where things just happen so, back to your point, in an automated, intelligent way is a great place to be living in.
Yeah, and the exciting piece for me, what I love about how you guys have introduced the business side, you're also educating the Spot user on the capability. We're spoiled a little bit. I think it's awesome that we have this internal team that can deliver this and enhance for the customer and for the account managers, carrier sales reps to go back and hey, there's a team behind us. They're driving all these changes for us from the tech standpoint. So I think it's cool to see the whole thing play out and for that exposure to the business side and to the customer side from the tech piece. Okay, one of the last things I want to touch on, the roadmap. What's it look like? I would love to hear thoughts. I don't care if we're going to dig in for a few minutes around agentic AI or Gen AI or whatever we want to talk about. But I have a few things that I know that we're working on, the voice platform. But Alex, if you want to talk a little bit about the roadmap, things that we're working on now that are actually testing and working through.
Sure. You touched on the voice platform, and that's a very potentially large initiative, right? Where we're trying to identify the first bits that we want to pilot with. Customer support, whether it be customers or our carriers, if they have a question, if they have something that they want insight on, is there any possibility to, say, automate that? Just sort of shorten the lead time for them having a question or a barrier and then getting to it or past it. So and that also plays into, you say, roadmap, Ben. The limitation with some of these LLMs is what we might call working memory. It only can know about so much at one time. It's impossible for ChatGPT or an AI that we provision in-house to have knowledge of our entire data structure of every shipment, of every order, right? As that grows, that becomes that much more powerful, where you ask it a question, and that's where the intelligence starts to peak out a little bit to where it's still using information it has on hand to calculate a response. But if I can ask it, please give me the order details for order XYZ123, it knows enough to go and then deliver that to me. So personally, that's something I'm really excited about for both internal and external use, that you get these systems with savvy enough knowledge to deliver you what you need to get things done.
Yeah, I think it's huge back to the customer side, really enhancing customer service and then shrinking that frustration, right? I need an answer. I need to speak to someone. How do I get that answer?
Oh, yeah. And we've all lived it. And you see systems all across every industry. You call to the BMV, they have an automated presence, right? And it gives me a good feeling if I can answer a question or queue up getting, my license renewed at a faster cadence. So I would love for that to be our experience also, that it becomes less painful than it's maybe been in the past.
Tyler, thoughts, what you're exposed to? I know everything from you've been working with the pricing side of things. You've been working on the large language model piece, the prompts, that roadmap. Do you want to touch on that?
I think there's two sides of it. One, I'm excited for the agent development piece, right? How can we help our customers, our carriers, and our applications move quicker, be more efficient. And then internally, I think, like I said, bringing the business side in, getting their feedback and asking them where their pain points are. Where can we help you? Whether that be, like Alex said, with AI or with a report or with something else. Sitting on the data side, I think we have the foundation. And so hearing from them how we can support creating those solutions, I think that's always on my roadmap is helping internally and obviously externally as well.
Well, once again, guys, I'm so grateful for your time today. I appreciate the input, and I know that we're excited to have you guys on here, and we'll do this again. So once again, thank you, and thanks to all the listeners.
And that's a wrap for More Than a Broker. You heard firsthand accounts from industry experts and Spot's hardworking individuals, revealing a culture of collaboration and innovation. For more information about Spot, our service offerings, our people and culture, our job postings, and more, check us out online at spotinc.com. That is spotinc.com. Thank you for listening and for being part of this journey. Until next time, keep striving to be more than a broker.